Beautiful. All right, guys. Thank you so much. All right. So today we're going to walk through a little bit about the fellowship, about the application process, what we're looking for in applicants. And we also have a number of fellows from both cohorts that are here to answer any questions for you. They have been in your position. Actually, four of the fellows that we chose for our last cohort were on the info session last year. So that's telling, and that's very exciting for us to see that. So we're going to walk you through, and then at the end of this, we'll have a Q&A. You can ask us any questions that you like, and hopefully we'll be able to answer all of those for you. So I want to start with the Rockefeller Institute because there's a bunch of names you'll hear today. So we have the New York State Science Policy Fellowship and the Rockefeller Institute. So the Rockefeller Institute is the home base for this fellowship. We are SUNY's public policy think tank. We conduct research to inform policy solutions for problems in New York State and the nation. We have a bunch of researchers here. We focus on a lot of different things like gun violence, immigration and immigrant integration, higher education, climate policy, economic development. You can go and peruse our website to see the different things that we publish. We're based in Albany, New York, which is the capital of New York. And we run four different programs, or I guess I run those. We have the Nathan Public Policy Fellowship, which is more for academics that are further in their careers, often retirees that are working on a passion project, and we pair them with a mentor here at the Institute, and they work on a passion project over the course of a year, and that's online. We have the Center for Law and Policy Solutions internship, which is a collaborative research project that we work primarily with Albany students, and they work on a research project over the course of a semester. Our Empire State Fellows is probably the closest to our Science Policy Fellowship, where we place fellows in similar types of positions, and that's also a 2-year fellowship. And then we have our Science Policy Fellowship. We are, as you know, entering our 3rd cohort, which is really exciting for us. Tell you a little bit about Albany. Albany has about 100,000 people in the capital region. There's about 1.2 million. So this is mixing up Albany, Troy, Saratoga, Schenectady. We're about 2 to 3 hours from a lot of major cities. There's Montreal, there's Boston, there's New York City. We've got a city here, and then you drive 20 minutes, and then you're in rural farmland, and there's hiking. We're near the Adirondacks, the Catskills. It's kind of a perfect in-between place to be. It's a great city to offer, but then you can travel to so many places and get the things that you need. This is my big sell on Albany. We have lots of seasons. Obviously, we just had a 7-inch snowstorm on Tuesday. Actually, there's a squall happening right now. But you wear the proper clothes and you have a good winter. Summers here are gorgeous, fall, leaf peeping season, all of those things. These are our wonderful sell on Albany. All right, so let's move on to the Science Policy Fellowship. I know that's why you guys are here. So this fellowship started in 2024. For our first cohort, we received incredible funding from both the Simons Foundation and the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation. And this was basically a fellowship that had been in the works for over a decade. And we were able to get moving with it and incredibly started our first fellowship. Adding in someone else. In April 2024 was basically when this was kicked off. And we're able to offer 6 fellows placements in the executive and the legislature. So we have 6 fellows per cohort, 2 years working in full-time placements in Albany, living here with an $85,000 salary with benefits. It's pretty incredible. There are fellowships like ours around the country, but we're the only one that's 2 years. We have a very competitive salary. It feels really good. And 2 cohorts exist simultaneously. So because it's that 2 years, so for the very first time this year, we have a new cohort, and they are happening at the same time as our first cohort. I'm going to introduce Laura because I want her to talk about kind of the fellows that we're looking for here. I run a lot of the programmatic and logistical sides of this fellowship, and Laura's more on the science policy side. So Laura, take a second, introduce yourself, and talk about kind of the fellows that we're looking for here.
Sure. Thanks, Sam. Hi, everybody. My name's Laura Rabineau. I'm the Director of Research here at Rockefeller Institute. My own background is academically speaking, is in science and technology studies. So I come at the science policy programming from that lens, though I focus on environmental health policy research in particular. In terms of the candidates that we're looking for, I think some of the strengths that we saw in applicants over the last couple of years were candidates that demonstrated in some way, shape, or form the ability to move between and talk to people in different spaces, right? And with different sorts of expertise. And that could look like a lot of different things, right? It could look like talking to particular stakeholders that are relevant to your area of research and expertise. It could look like working in a youth program that is very separate from the research that you do. It could look like running a hot dog stand. I really mean this in the broadest possible sense. Just folks who can move between different worlds and who have some interest, I think, in doing that work. We work really hard through the fellowship to develop the kind of translational skills that fellows are going to need in order to operate in a very new professional environment. I come out of academia and have hopped back and forth between policy and research a lot. And so I sympathize when I say that there are different languages, different cultures, different bureaucracies at play. And so we really want to help folks strengthen their skills in moving across those spaces. But we also want folks who are generally comfortable moving into new spaces and doing some of that work, interest in doing that work. The other thing I would say is an interest in policy, whether it's capital P policy or lowercase p policy. It doesn't have to be that you want to write legislation. It might be that you're interested in how do we, from a governance perspective, effectively implement good public health programs, for example. How do we monitor that and make sure that they're actually being implemented effectively? I think folks who came to us in their applications with a clear sense of their connection to or interest in policy in some way, shape, or form presented some of the strongest applications. Dan, I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you, Laura. You'll be back. All
Great.
right. So I did want to walk through what does the fellowship look like? Because I know that we're a two-year fellowship. So first year, just to be clear, both years you're in your full-time placements. But when you're coming for the Rockefeller Institute, so year one, which for you guys would be September to August of 2026 to 2027, we have our professional development monthly meetings where you'll hear from guest speakers, both in government and science policy. We look at addressing the intersection of science and technology and public policy. This is also just a great time to reconnect with your cohort once a month. We do check-ins with you guys to see how things are going. In that second year, which is something we're doing for the first time now with our first cohort, instead of having those professional development meetings, we have a monthly mentorship and capstone development. And so actually, Laura, I'm sneaking you back in to talk briefly on the capstones. Come in here one more second.
Great. Thanks. So the capstones are really meant to be a way to demonstrate in part what fellows have learned over the past, at the end, 2 years, and to help them develop this bridge project that can move them from where they are in their placement to where they want to go post-fellowship. And so it's been a process, I think, with all of the fellows doing that the first time this year of developing what that looks like in triangulating what is their interest, what is their placement office interest, and where do they want to go and what project will help them get there. Those projects may take different forms. They'll present them briefly at the end of the fellowship, and there will be a written product. But that could take the form of a piece of legislation. It could take the form of a policy brief. It could take the form of more of a research-oriented document. So it is not a very specific type of project. It is really meant to be useful to fellows as much as possible and useful to the places that they're working.
Fantastic. And then you will present those capstones at the end of the fellowship. This is August. It'll probably be more like July because August, the end of July is the end of the fellowship. So I want to talk about our application process. As you know, our applications are open right now until January 9th. Feel free to ask us questions at any point throughout that time. You'll meet some fellows today too, and they're more than welcome or more than happy to take emails from you and have them answer any questions for you guys as well. So January, we'll review all applications on our internal team. And then by the end of January, early February, we'll do that first round of interviews. Which is about a 30, 45-minute Zoom call with our internal selection committee. We do a second round of interviews, which is more with placement officers. Sometimes this is 3, sometimes this is 4 consecutive interviews, about 30 minutes each. Last year, we split it into over the course of 2 days. It is pretty intensive, but it has worked out. And then we are making our decisions for our 6 fellows in March, ideally end of March, early April. Decisions will go out. Excuse me. As you know, this is what we're looking for in our applications. The cover letter, I would stress this, is that assume the reviewers don't have a science background or don't know exactly the type of thing that you have been working on throughout your entire PhD. We want to see that excitement. We want to see that translation into public policy work, but assume as someone like me who doesn't have a science background can understand, because the whole point is that you're going to be able to translate this when you're in the fellowship. References, don't stress about that just now. We won't need those until you're in the final stages of essentially once we have conducted our second round of interviews is when we're looking for those references, which can be either called or emailed. So once we're closer to that phase, that's when we'll look for those. And this is the eligibility. I really want to stress, we tried to push this, but the PhD has to be rewarded in hand by August 1st, 2026. It can't be end of August. It's just how our grant works. I wish we could do it differently, but I know this might be harder. But one of our fellows today got, I believe, Jose, you'll speak on this, but received his doctorate that week of the fellowship, right before it began. So it can happen for you as well. All right. Frequently asked questions that we get, visas, we can't support that. I really wish we could. It's just something that we're not unable to do. But we have a fellow, maybe Sadia can speak to her experience with visas on this as well. We can't provide a moving stipend, but we do have, I think, the highest pay for this fellowship. So hopefully that helps as well. Placement details you'll find out once you start, but they don't provide laptops, but everything is in-person work environment. Most of them are hybrid to some degree, and then general professional attire is asked. All right, so I'm going to take a pause. I want our fellows to talk. I'm really excited because for the first time we have fellows from each cohort. I would love for them to give a background on who they are, why they applied for this fellowship, and what their process was like and what their placement is. So Jose, I'm going to have you start because you're first here.
Hi, folks. My name is Jose. I am one of the fellows in the second cohort. I did my PhD at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, studying environmental science, particularly how bacteria are involved in degrading contaminants. What brought me to this fellowship was sort of a little bit of a reaction to the current state of politics in the country. And then also changing landscapes in terms of where I saw myself working in policy setting or from a regulatory perspective, and that sort of shifting because I was originally looking at the EPA. My application process was pretty straightforward. I think last year the deadline was a little bit earlier, like around New Year's-ish. So it was a little bit more stressful, but nonetheless, it was pretty straightforward. Zan was great throughout that, and just making sure to really emphasize that sort of translational portion of science and why science is important, but how you're able to translate it to other aspects of work and other people, and then any connection you really had with policy of any sort. And then, yes, I did get my PhD. I got my acceptance letter on July 31st, my completion letter. It was an interesting experience. I would recommend not doing that. It was very stressful. I'd recommend, if you can, defending significantly earlier, because administrations are difficult to work with at schools.
That's like, Jose, can you speak about your current placement, what you're doing? I know you just
Yeah.
started, but what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I'm placed in the Senate. I'm on central staff working with council for the majority. And what we do, for the most part, at least for me, I'm working in the role of a policy analyst. So I work in environmental conservation as my portfolio. I work with legislation that comes in, new bills or bills that have been previously introduced regarding environmental conservation. I digest that information. I include any political background information that I've gotten from discussions with lobbyists or with my colleagues, and any implications that I might be seeing that legislation might have, either economically, socially, politically, and sort of putting that in a very condensed summary that we call calendar memos that we provide to members of the majority conference for them to make decisions on whether or not they'll be interested in passing the bill, not passing the bill, or abstaining from voting on the bill.
Thank you, Jose. I'm sure someone will have questions for you after. Appreciate
Of
it.
course.
All right, Alana.
Hi everyone. I'm so glad to see so many people are here. Yeah, so I'm a part of the first cohort. I'm now about a year and a half into the fellowship. I graduated from the University of Michigan, and my degree is in kinesiology, which is the study of human movement. Specifically, I studied how our brain controls how we reach and grab for objects, which is a very niche thing, which does not exactly relate to the exact work that I'm doing now, but I think that that's the real beauty of this fellowship. Throughout my whole graduate career, I was always really interested in that intersection between science and STEM and academia and the larger world public. So everything from getting more science students voting and involved with their local officials, to, increasing scientific literacy and helping the public understand the types of research that we were doing. And that's a lot of the work, or it really ties into, those skills really tie into the work that I've been doing. So I've had a unique placement experience in that I've had two placements. So my first year was in the Division of Budget, which gave me just so much understanding of how the cycle of government works. And it's really cool to see, essentially just like that backroom access pass to everything from how the money is coming in to how the decisions are made between the governor's office and the legislature, and then it gets sent out the door to the agencies to actually enact. And then, so I was in the health unit over at Division of Budget, and then this year I'm actually in the Department of Health itself. So now I get to see how those laws, everything that we just kind of were like, yeah, this sounds great, and how that's actually put into place and enacted. So I've done things from like creating documents that, to fulfill different policy needs that will actually go out to the public. A lot of recent work that I've been doing have been around actions from the federal government and responding to them in a way that is really accessible to the public. So, for example, you may have heard that there was a CDC change, changing how they think that vaccines cause autism, which is not true. So we put out a report, we did a lot of research and brought in a lot of scientific evidence, and then put it in a way that is really accessible to the public. So I'm really excited to answer any questions you have.
So much. Okay, Emily.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily. I graduated with my PhD from Cornell University in Ithaca, in biomedical engineering, where I studied broadly muscle stem cells and their interaction with other cell types in the skeletal muscle and how that can give us insights into regeneration and how that changes with aging. And similar to what others spoke about, during graduate school, I was really interested in STEM education outreach. So I co-chaired Cornell's Biomedical Engineering Society outreach coordinator role and was involved a lot in like K through 12 STEM education outreach. And then also got really interested in science policy, took a science policy boot camp course at Cornell, which was a really excellent semester-long intro to science policy. And as part of that course, did a project on regenerative agriculture, which was obviously so outside my scientific area of expertise, but it really showed me how I enjoyed kind of learning a different area of science and understanding and being able to write about some of like the policy implications of that, and just enjoyed working across that boundary of science and policy and thinking about those issues, and really just an appreciation for how science impacts so many areas of society and so many issues. And I would say, so for my current placement, I'm with Empire State Development, which is New York State's economic development agency. And within Empire State Development, or ESD, I'm within the life sciences division there, and really getting to lead and work very closely on ESD's Life Sciences Workforce Development Initiative. So that has been great, getting to both work on this like longer term strategy and research to plan out what New York State will do for ensuring a strong workforce for life sciences over the next 5 years. So that's been really interesting to think about and work on that kind of a longer term strategy. And then also some short term projects where I've gotten to develop a specific training program that recently launched. And so that's been really interesting work, getting to think about and work with all the different stakeholders there. So industry, academia partnerships, and thinking through how you would want to develop a training program and working with those partners. And that's a lot of the work that I really enjoyed doing during graduate school. So really have enjoyed that kind of stakeholder engagement and program development work.
Sadia, why don't you close out?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I'm Sadia Rahman. I did my PhD in computer science at State University of New York here at Albany, so I didn't really have to move. My work mostly focused on developing AI models for social problems, specifically with homelessness and financial inclusion. That's basically what I did during my entirety of my PhD. As you can see, social good problems always have this policy aspect, and I was really interested to know how the policy would impact the large scale application of these AI models, especially when we are working with sensitive population as homeless people and so on. So that's where I really wanted to do this fellowship and kind of bridge that gap between policy and AI models specifically. After I joined, that became more clearer because with the boom in AI and the whole chat GPT and everything, and how AI policy can have an impact on that, has been really nice to look into. Uh, I'm placed in assembly with the Ways and Means Committee. It's been a really nice experience there. They're really welcoming. They were really respectful, and it was kind of nice to join. Although I joined in a very quiet time, um, but currently, I'm with their economics team, which has been really helpful in terms of contributing to their team. So they are all economists and they work mostly with data analysis of different data sets, and they try to forecast what would the economy look like next year. So it could be what would unemployment look like, or what would job market look like, and all the fun stuff. So it was really rewarding to know that my data analysis experiences has been really helpful here. So I joined and I started working with some of the data they worked with. I was able to come up with a lot of insight that they were able to use. So again, that was really rewarding. And on the aspect of policymaking, our team does not really work with bills specifically, but they were really open to me, allowing me to work with other teams as well. So I can kind of be associated with bills and see how bills is written, how they're analyzed, and how they are being passed and all that stuff. So I'm currently in the words with education team to work with one of their aides, specifically the foundation aide. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. I've also had conversations about working with AI policy as well. I will be connecting with some of the teams who work with AI policies. So that's something I'm really excited about as well. So far I'm having a good time and really excited for the session next year. So yeah.
Thank you, Sadia. Sadia, it's nice to have an Albany person as a home base for everybody that they can check in with. There was one slide that I potentially skipped, or it's not here at all. Here it is. Okay, I want to come back to this. Thank you all to the fellows. We're going to open up the Q&A in a second, and you can ask them some questions, but I just want to jump back to this. So just to come back to our slide here about applications and sending out decisions. So the final placement, so essentially you will accept end of April or mid-April, depending on how quickly we get through, have a couple months, and then oftentimes you'll see people are going on vacation, so placements might not really happen until June or July. I know this might seem a little scary, but essentially you will know at least what branch you will be in, which will be good. So final placements will happen August 1st. The fellowship officially begins. You move to Albany right away. We're going to go to the National Conference for State Legislature Summit. This is an annual conference. This past year was in Boston. This coming year will be in Chicago. This is great. Both cohorts go. It's a perfect way to start the fellowship. You get immediate cohort connection. There are a bunch of panels and seminars to take, and you kind of get thrown right in. This is how the fellowship begins. And it winds up being really nice. It's about a 5-day conference right at the beginning. We return back and essentially go immediately down to New York City, where you will meet people from the Simons Foundation. It's a really important visit for us and for them to get to know the new cohort, and it's always really nice. Again, we're building a lot of cohort community connection right at the beginning. And then for a week, we do an orientation here at the Rockefeller Institute. We are hoping that you know some things about New York State government when you start the fellowship, but it's also okay if you don't. This is kind of our really intense 101. What is New York State government? You're going to hear from a bunch of different experts from different aspects of state government, and it's really helpful. You hear about the budget. You'll hear about what's an agency, what's an authority. It's very helpful. And you'll just be bombarded with information for 4 days straight and then be very tired, unpack your stuff. And then mid-August, closer to the end, is when your official placements begin. So all of this is happening basically in the first 3 weeks of August, right when the fellowship begins.
Zan, I'm just going to make a small note,
Yeah, please.
as Jose was good to point out in our chat too, that NCSL is happening a little early this coming year.
Yes.
So it's end of July. So we will be working with
I didn't
all
want to
of the
mention it because
fellows
it's
to
a
figure that out.
logistical. I didn't bring it up on a call because it's a logistical nightmare for us a little bit. So if you get accepted, we'll figure that out. But essentially, normally the fellowship starts August 1st and we go straight to NCSL. Of course, to make things complicated, NCSL is at the end of July this year. So we are going to figure out that. So yes, so we'll see. But you will still be going to NCSL. It's potential that you'll fly on your own NCSL and then move to Albany. So we'll figure that out. But thank you. But we'll be in Chicago. It'll be very fun, very windy, I hope. Outside of NCSL, we also go to the AAAS annual meeting, which is annual in February this year. We're going to Phoenix. It'll be really nice. That's always over like President's Day weekend. And then on top of that, we offer $1,000 professional development stipend every year to each fellow. And so this can be used for other conferences, travel. We have a couple that are doing certification classes. Anything that makes sense, you can talk with your placement officer or do it on your own. And we approve pretty much everything, and there aren't really parameters to this, but it's really nice to be able to have this additional funding for our fellows. I think that's it for right now. Laura, is there anything else you want to add before we open up our Q&A?
I was just going to note, given the timeline and what Sadia had noted earlier, that when fellows start in August, for most of them, it is a quieter time of their placement office, and that's by design. Usually, right, in New York, we have the budget process, which officially kicks off in January and runs through the end of March. And so that tends to be a really peak and busy time. So we try to design the program such that you have a little bit of a ramp up to that point to get comfortable, to learn your office and all of your colleagues, to have time to figure out like, where's the copier? All of those fun kind of little things to get grounded. And then usually that time of year in the winter tends to be the busiest, although it differs. I know Alana came into Division of Budget, and so that meant that her office was a bit busy earlier on.
Exactly. So I'm going to stop sharing this presentation. I'm going to open this up. If anybody has any questions for Laura, myself, or any of our fellows, feel free to, you can raise your hand or just unmute. I'm going to change even the view. Maybe we can all see each other. But ask us questions. Let us help you along this journey. Anybody have a question? We answered everything perfectly. Oh, Gwen, please, you can unmute.
Sorry, I was trying to find the hand raise icon and I couldn't. So something that I was curious about in the cover letter, is there an interest or need to have like a general idea of what we would want to do for a capstone or the site we would want to work at? Like, is that something that you'd want to see us thinking about in the cover letter before that placement's even possible?
I'd just say that I don't think you need to have all of that figured out at this point. I think just demonstrating your general interests and where there's points of connection between your work and your interests and policy, that's helpful for us to know. But you don't need to tell us what your project for the second year is. I hope you haven't figured that out yet, because I want fellows to take in everything over their first year as they try to figure that out with us.
Our fellows just now who are in their second year are just figuring those things out. So you can start thinking about it, sure, but
I will note towards the end of the application process, as we're moving into especially second interviews where there's involvement from the placement offices, we then will ask candidates to think about where they see best fit too, because we want not just placement office feedback and our thoughts across the application process, but your thoughts about what the best fit for you is.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Katie.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for having this informational session. I have two questions, I guess. I'm curious if you can speak a little bit more, you started to, about the placement process, about kind of how that mutual matching works. And then second, I'm curious to know, I know the first cohort's still kind of in the middle of it, but curious to know what people's placement ideas are for after. Is there kind of a pipeline into existing positions in the government, or is it kind of, do you imagine it to be more open than that? Just curious. Thanks so much.
Laura, please, you can start.
Okay. So we really try to triangulate everybody's interests and thoughts about fit. So we take back from placement offices how they think everybody might fit. We take back the same thing from you. We're going to ask you to rank your choices, not just according to like what you want, but how you think you work day to day too, and what that's going to look like in a particular placement. So it may be that there's topical alignment. It may be that there's work-life balance alignment. It might be that there is a particular kind of work alignment in terms of what kinds of projects you want to work on. I would take all of that into account. And then we also, because we've seen everybody across this process and we're more familiar with the placement offices, we're going to also weigh in and try and think about where we see the best alignment for everybody being and try to maximize that for each and every person.
Or before
Remind
you
me.
answer the second
Mhm.
question, I'm curious, is there any fellow here that maybe didn't get the choice that when we
Mm.
did the ranking, can you talk a little bit about that process for you? Jose, you're smiling. Was there, please?
I ranked the Senate at the bottom of my barrel, and that's where I got placed. And honestly, I'm very happy I was placed here. So
Good answer.
it's not that the Senate was like, oh my God, horrible during the interviews, right? It was just in terms of like who I spoke to and stuff during the interviews. I saw a little bit better of a fit in other offices, but honestly, from what I've heard from like the other members of my cohort, I think one, we were all placed fantastically. But also I think that in any of the different positions, I think we would have still engaged in what we were hoping to get out of the fellowship. So I really don't think there were necessarily bad placements.
I think I had put the Senate as my top choice, and then agencies as my second choice. And now looking back, I'm very glad that I was put in an agency because, like I had mentioned during my intro, I really enjoy this more like longer term program development, project development kind of work. And so it's been really satisfying to me to see like a whole project through in the 2 years. And that's the other thing I'll say. The 2 years I think has been great because the things I started a year ago, I'm finally seeing like the results of them. So, yeah.
Or the other question was a plate like post fellowship
Mhm.
career.
Yeah. So we're just in the middle of the beginning, I think, of that process with the first cohort. I think there are a lot of placement offices that are really interested in having folks stay. Their ability to keep somebody will vary year to year based on their budget. And so that's something to keep in mind as folks come in. But generally speaking, I think where there's an interest for folks who want to stay in New York State government, there's usually a place to be found, right? When there is good talent and people bring valuable expertise to bear and work hard, we will work hard with them to find a place for them. And we certainly have good networks ourselves, I think, across New York State government. So it may be that you really enjoyed your placement, but you see a slightly different spot in New York State government long term being a better fit for you. We're going to work with you to figure out what that bridge looks like and how to get you there. I think also there are some folks who may find that they want to go back into academia or be in a kind of third space, or maybe even go back or into the private sector, right? I think those are all fine and good outcomes for this program and for its goals. The idea is really over the long term to build a cohort of folks in New York and elsewhere who can do that translational work from all of these different spaces, right? So that we build that bridge in a stronger, more sustainable way.
It's also
Yeah,
hard
did
for us
that
to answer
answer your
that since
question?
we haven't had it happen yet, the post, but we have had several fellows buy houses in the Albany area. So that makes us happy and feel there's a commitment here. So
Great, thanks, Katie. I would also just say that right now, as we build out the alumni portion of the program, we're thinking with other programs and with the AAAS fellowship at the federal level about how to better network and integrate all of these alumni so that there is a larger professional network out there. If and as people want to stay in this kind of work, but maybe move across different spaces. Mm-hmm.
Brianna.
Hi,
Hi.
thank you so much for holding this info session. I had a question mostly for Ilana, if that's okay, but maybe if anyone else wants to answer too. If I understood correctly, you mentioned that you were placed somewhere in your first year and then switched for your second year. I was wondering if that's like a common thing in the program or kind of what drove that decision. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, for me, it was planned, and I think that it was planned mainly because I think the Department of Health required a stricter background check that wouldn't have happened in time, and I think that's the reason. And so it worked out really well for me. I do know that we have another fellow who also switched, and they asked to be transferred, and just because of the relationships that Rockefeller has with so many places around the government, that was facilitated really well. Maybe Laura, Zan, you can talk more about what the behind the scenes of that looked like.
Yeah, I think the other person for them, it was more a question of I think the work-life balance of their particular placement, than of like, their colleagues or the work at hand or anything like that. And I think we want everybody to have the best fit and over the long term find a place where they really want to invest. And so finding a new placement, something we're happy to do. We don't want to have to do it all the time. So we're trying to get it right the first time as best as possible, and then work with people at the end of the fellowship if they see a better placement for them permanently, to get them there. But I think in certain cases, yeah, that's something that we're happy to help facilitate when necessary. Absolutely. And yes, I think yours did happen because the health department, we hadn't quite solidified the timeline for that. And so we wanted to make sure that that had the time that it needed. And we thought there would be a really nice synergy between Division of Budget and Health if you could work across that team within budget and then transfer into health. So I think making those connections is really special. So.
And it worked out really well because a lot of the people have been working with colleagues anyway. So yeah, I was able to bring that knowledge back.
Great.
Ivan, do you want to? Are you? There you go.
Yeah, thank you for this information session. I just want to ask the fellows coming into this program, did everyone already have a background participating in science policy, or did anyone come in with a purely academic background but with with an interest in science policy? And then the second question I have is, I know there was you need to have a PhD, but is there an upper limit of how long have you already gotten your PhD, and whether if you already worked in the private sector, is that does that impact your eligibility?
Maybe I can just answer the second part first, and then I'll hand it off. No, that doesn't impact your eligibility. This is open to people over the course of their career. I think it tends to be because of the postdoc requirement. There are some restrictions, I think, through Research Foundation, which this funding runs through around that. But generally, we're open to considering all candidates who have a degree in hand. And I think we've had folks who have private sector experience. That's very welcome. We love to see that people have worked across these different spaces, as I was saying earlier. And the other part that you asked about, in terms of science policy background, and maybe fellows can weigh in here too. I know that we've had a wide range of folks who have been very deeply involved. I think Emily was explaining some of her involvement in science policy efforts earlier, at university, to folks who had very little, but who had been very involved in other aspects of their work outside of just academia, right? I think all of those types of experiences are really valuable. It's less about, do you have specific policy experience? Because that's what this program is meant to offer, and more about interest in that respect and ability to move between spaces, whatever they may be.
I can add in a little bit on that. So since I was a computer scientist, I've been purely working with academic paper, journal, and all that. I did work with social good problems, but I was not involved in any sort of policy related problems or issues. But however, I did work with a lot of stakeholders during my PhD. So I've worked with business people, I've worked with data scientists, I've worked with uh, professors from other domains, and that kind of gave me an idea to kind of translate my problems or the problems I've been working with to a wide range of individuals. So that I think was really helpful in this sense, because once we started our placements, the first thing they want to know is what you have been working with and how they can kind of accommodate around it. And being able to explain that in really simple terms is was something I felt was really helpful for me in my although I didn't have any policy related experience.
I just want to go through the questions that we have in the chat here really quickly about the PhD requirement. So all proof of PhD has to be completed by August 1st is the simplest way to say that. So all requirements set and completed. In terms of the visa, Sadia, I would love if you also want to chime in here. I know you had some visa things, but I would start applying it as soon as you're accepted, essentially. Sadia had an extension. Do you want to just briefly talk about that too? It was a
Sure.
seamless process for you, but
So when I was applying, I was still in my student visa. Um, right after I got my acceptance, I finished my PhD right away. I would suggest not holding it off because it would definitely impact you applying for your OPT. So I went with the premium processing, and then I had my OPT by the end of June, I would like to say, or uh mid-June or so. So that I think end of June. So I think it's best if you kind of wrap up your PhD and have the OPT process going as soon as you get your acceptance. If you go with premium processing, that will be a little smoother. I was advised by my international ISSS in my school to apply premium processing right away since I needed my visa right before August. But yeah, I believe it's best if you kind of work on it faster than later.
Sadia, yeah, as soon as possible,
Yes.
is what I would say. Just to get through here, the final selection cohort is 6 fellows per cohort. So 12 are occurring at the same time, but 6 per cohort. And then once fellows are accepted, how much time do they have to make a decision to accept the fellowship? We give about a week, just because we assume by then you know if you want to do this or not. And yeah, so 1 week for that. I think that's it for questions on here. Any other questions before we close this? This has been great, especially with our fellows here, and we can provide their emails if you want to send them an email as well. Last minute questions before we close this session. Okay. Oh, yes, Tina.
Hi, sorry for the last minute question. I think
That's
you
okay.
touched on, yeah, and you touched on this before, but just want to know how much of the specifics that you need to know about how New York State government works before applying or writing your letter.
Really none.
Yeah. I mean, you know a little, but we will give you I mean, the fellows can speak to how it's exhausting that week. We give a very intensive overview of New York State government that you're getting in that first is like the third week that you're here. We'll do an orientation of jam-packed of things that you should know, and then you'll be learning throughout, obviously, the 2 years that you're here. We provide you with a bunch of materials you can go home and study, but you'll want to know. You know, it'll obviously be helpful for you while you're in your placements, but also just being a part of being here. You'll want to know. I mean, yeah, how was orientation for everybody? It's a lot. It's jam-packed.
I think
Sadia?
it was a very fantastic week.
Yeah.
I could tell the difference. So I had no idea about how NYS government worked at all. But when I moved into after the orientation, it was really easier to kind of navigate and talk to the placement people. So I believe you do a terrific job there.
Thank you. Great. Perfect. So there you go, Tina. That's Ivan, did you have another question?
Yeah, just wondering whether if a person doesn't get selected this year, are they able to reapply the following year?
Absolutely. Of course. And we do have a wait list. You know, things do happen while we're select. Someone says yes, and then something happens, and there is a potential within the first month or so. We haven't had that yet, or I guess we have, but we haven't had it where it was too late. But there are always options of potentials that come in. So, but we can't defer an acceptance, but you can always reapply. Any other questions? Okay. You can email myself, Laura, any of the fellows at any time. We're really excited to see your applications. And yeah.
I'll just add, really do feel free to reach out.
Yeah.
We have had a wonderful experience with the first and second cohort members. They are all, the folks on here with us are incredible and have helped build this program along with us. And they are really great resources for you as well. And I really look forward to working with some of you to continue to build this program.
Thank you to the fellows that joined today. And thank you for all of you for joining here, and looking forward to reading your application. So be well and see you soon. Thank you, guys.